Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns. And we're in Season 7, which we found out last week is one of Steve's favorite numbers. It's a good number,
it is.
Steve.
It's a good number.
So that means we should be looking forward to all the beautiful things that are going to happen in Season 7.
I may have a story for every number that goes with the season.
Yeah?
Yeah, so Season 7, Episode 2,
Right.
number 72, was the football number.
I was going to say, it sounded like a football number.
Yep,
But, you know.
football number of Gregory Sweeney. Captain Gregory Sweeney. I was thinking about this the other day.
Yeah.
And the Sweeney, actually, Greg and his family lived down the road from my home of origin.
Yeah.
And we rode bus together. And he was a lanky, soft-spoken, probably 6'3", strapping young man.
Yeah.
Played defensive tackle, and just I know why the coaches picked him to be captain. And then I thought, in my overachieving self, I'm like, I don't think I ever was a captain. I can't remember. Like, that's the part I don't remember. But like, if I was going to run for office on anything. But yeah,
Sounds like a quarterback frame. Like 6'3", you can see over the offensive defensive line. I mean,
but again, as we talked about last episode, it was the non-club era.
Oh, right.
And so, there were people who were going to school whose fathers had played football.
Yeah.
And, quarterback is usually an elite position.
Yeah.
You got to start early with kids for them to have a mindset. And they have to have a mind for the game. They got to understand plays, and they got to be able to see in the development of it, and things like that. Yeah. And my guess is, because we were country bumpkins, we didn't necessarily have the. Yeah, I think the quarterbacks of our football team were boys who grew up in town, Right. But we were strong farm hands and made great linemen.
There you go.
All right, break that down to
defensive linemen, right?
Well,
offensive
we play both ways.
Both ways? Okay.
Yeah. So that is one thing of me coming out of the closet that I can share. I did go both ways in one area of my life. That's when I played football.
Right.
And I don't mean with the other players. I meant like I played offense and defense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
so you were on both sides of the ball. You must have gotten some
major minutes.
Major minutes.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much my junior year, I don't remember not playing, not being on the field.
So you were there. Did you do special teams too?
Actually, I think that might have been an area. I think I was off on special teams.
So you got a little bit of a break for.
But there might have been
field goals, punts, kickoffs.
Well, field goals would be regular, for us anyway, was regular offensive line.
Okay.
And, punt return, they would trade out who was who was receiving the punt with the backs and stuff like that. But, again, defensive line, you're just going back trying to crunch somebody.
Right.
I actually, I don't know, I can't remember the last time we talked about me playing football, but I was the only defensive with the backs got stickers for when they got touchdowns. I was the only defensive lineman that got a sticker because I returned a 97-yard fumble for a touchdown.
Wow.
And the funny part is it was not all caught on tape because I just emerged with the ball and just ran my little booty off and got down there. And all of a sudden, the camera comes back on, and it's like, oh, my gosh, Coble's got the football. And he's heading. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yeah, my junior year.
97 yards. I mean, that's significant.
That was way down there.
Yeah.
It could have been shorter. Maybe it was 87. No, I don't know. All I know is the ball popped out, and it was right in front of me, and I scooped it up and just started running and just being in the place of, I don't know if I can get all the way down there, but I'm going to get as far as I can.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just ran.
Just like Forrest.
Just like Forrest.
Just like Forrest.
Run, Forrest, run.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, football has been in an undertow of conversation. I don't know if because it's college football season or what, but yeah, I was such a big boy. I developed early. Mm-hmm. Fifth and sixth grade. I was 5'9" and weighed 185 pounds. I'm like,
yeah,
that's
significant for.
I'm 5'9" right now and probably weigh 215. Mm-hmm. I was that size in sixth grade. Oofda. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that
it'd be hard to put a football helmet on and like chin guard over this beard.
Right.
It'd be major beard dent.
It would. I was just thinking about football. There was the quarterback for Miami Dolphins that, so 2 weeks ago, he got hit, and it looked as though, he was out of it, and NFL has in place like these concussion protocols where they're going to, hey, we got to make sure that the dude's noggin is good to go. And so they cleared him for concussion protocols, put him back out on the field. Like the next week, like he got hit again. And like you could tell, he was like his hands were like in that death kind of like,
yeah.
And this is like a direct result of concussions.
Yeah,
and so the neurologist for the team, or at least for the stadium, I don't know how it worked, but that dude was fired because obviously the guy was playing with a concussion.
Right.
And that can leave you with some permanent damage.
Well, that's
as
the
we've
whole
seen
thing.
with football, right?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think they've even changed. I don't watch the game often, but I think they've even changed the helmet in ways for like even if it's an accidental hit with the front of the helmet and stuff, like just even the helmet designs, they keep doing that. But it's a major deal. Maybe I just need to blame how my head works. I'm having played football.
That's right.
Yeah.
Blame football.
My buddy, Steve, who had a stroke, is dealing with brain damage because of the stroke and stuff. And we were just talking yesterday about how, like, there's the brain is really amazing. And they have him on like a Parkinson's medication. I'm probably like destroying some HIPAA law somewhere. Like this is probably, well, I didn't say last name, and so anyway.
Right.
But yeah, so here's a 52-year-old man having a stroke, but they put him on Parkinson's so that his neuro remapping could occur.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like,
it's amazing.
We get really pissy with corporations, and the idea of the amount of wealth that is in the
big
top
pharma,
in the top of the wealthiest of people. Right. Okay, but there is such another side to, like, rich, smart people have figured out some really cool shit.
Right.
And so there's where tribalism, as we've talked about, a dualistic mindset would be like, well, all people who have money you need to hate. Well, and my dad died at the age of 54, and so like I just was telling Steve, I'm like, dude, we're just glad to have you around. Mm-hmm. It's just really cool to have you around. And the medication that they gave him as a block to help with the clots and stuff like that, they told my mom and dad that if he would have been into the hospital earlier, he could have had that same medication. And so anyway, going through all of those things, the mind, wow, it's amazing, it's crazy, and
yeah,
it plays tricks on us. It's the jester of our courtyard. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So number 72,
Number 72.
Gregory Schweeney.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that leads us into that discussion right there with football, brain injuries, and all of that. I mean, and which is the reason why some people currently are steering their children away from football. Now, I don't know if it's going to be enough to actually make a dent in it, but it seems like there are some people who are like, you're not going to play football.
Yeah, and if you're a parent with young children and you've got a question about that with football, I don't necessarily have a list of alternative sports to play,
Yeah.
but I do think that rugby is not the choice.
No. Yeah. I mean, but it even like is crazy because, so as everybody out there, if you've listened, I started coaching soccer, right?
Yeah.
They won't let them head the ball.
Oh, yeah, because two heads going together don't equal one.
Yeah, so like you can't head even the ball, like so it's like, and then they're asking me, they're like, well, I don't know, like why can't we head? Well, I think it has something to do with brain injuries and stuff like that. Like I don't know how, like, because I used to head the ball all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can do it differently. I'm like, you just got to be able to position yourself, trying to find where the ball's going to come down. And instead of using your head, you're going to use your chest. You're going to use your thought, whatever soft spot in order to deaden the ball and not use your head. Because there's some refs apparently that if you use your head in these games, that it's like an automatic dead ball. The other team has a kick, almost like it's a penalty.
Wow.
So, I mean, not only do they say you can't do it, but it's also penalized. Now, nobody gets a red card or yellow cards or anything from it, but it's a definite, like, don't do this out of threat of punishment.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I thought that was an interesting, but to me, I think it does lead to the same discussions about head injuries and where are they coming from early on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I had at least one concussion in soccer. I had another one in basketball.
Wow.
So I've had a couple.
Yeah.
I don't know. So far, I think I'm thinking well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's had a direct impact on me, but
yeah,
I have had a few. So
hockey's another one.
Oh yeah, hockey.
High impact sport where like concussion and brain injury can lead to. I believe in student hockey, like you're allowed so many concussions, and then they're flat out, sorry, you can't play this game any longer because it's detrimental to your development and advancement. And then there's other studies too going on about these guys that the issues from concussion don't even take place until they get older. But talk about not aging well. I mean, yeah, it's a game that's hard on the body.
Right.
But I mean, we've been talking sports since you've been coaching soccer, and we've talking about some golf and some different things like that. So
right. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, I don't know too many people that get concussions by playing guitar as a kid. So if you're really trying to be able to steer your children away from, sports that may rattle your brain, and hey, what should I do with them then? Well, put them in the arts.
Yeah, and my personal recommendation would be, especially for children, number one, start with keys, piano.
Yeah.
Number two, don't buy a clavinova, because there's actual science behind musical wavelength, not just auditory wavelength.
Yeah.
So there's a physiological thing going on that when you play a real piano and the strings are struck, that the vibrations affect your body differently than music going in your ear holes.
Wow.
And so I would just say when people are like, what? I'm like, listen, you can get an upright piece of crap piano on Craigslist or I'm sure Marketplace
You could probably get it for free.
for free. Now, the thing is, with that, a lot of times pianos haven't been tuned for many years.
Right.
And you should call a piano tuner and have the thing tuned.
Right.
And you know, and it's not a hard practice. And then for the cost of the money, you have the piano tuned. Cost you about $125 every 6 months just to have the piano tuned. But the likelihood of the child continuing with lessons goes up substantially when they're not playing on a clavinova. When they're playing a regular, and you can get these little uprights they don't take up a ton of space.
No.
And then you are paying towards your purgatory by listening to your child having to practice
Right.
Mary Had a Little Lamb. But so when people are like, wow, I never would have thought about, oh, hold it. There's music really is mathematics. It's not about notes. And so then what that allows, and also there's a study out there about how many doctors who become surgeons, the percentage of doctors who become surgeons having had piano or are actively playing piano is substantially higher.
Wow.
Because it forces the brain to operate on both sides with the left hand work, which is typically bass line work, and the right hand. And based on the advancement, how advanced they get into the music, is you can have those hands going in different directions as you're reading the notes, not only on the top, but also on the bottom clef.
Wow.
And so then your eyes are taking in like notes synonymously that have to go to an appendage that's working in opposite directions. Yeah. So just a little bit of what
There you go.
And you can Google fact check everything that I just said. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to find out that I'm right about what I've said because I Googled it. So unless we're using a different Google and our perceived reality is on a different plane,
Right.
at least in this current plane that you're in, So, but yeah, piano and because of numerics, you have a linear surface, so visualization about placement of the notes and the white and the black keys, and then what that is, because going in one direction they're flat, going in another direction they're sharp, and how that is the imagery of that then translates into just about any other instrument you'd pick up. So then guitar, becomes easier in concept. And I rarely meet people who said, yeah, I had piano lessons and I quit, and I'm so glad I did.
Right.
I mean, really, if it was imposed upon you. And so then parents think about what fights are worth it.
That's true.
If based on mind, the native mind technology, and that you're going to fight over screen time, or is it just a part of the discipline within your home? So there's screen time. Well, then you get into, of course, you want children to go out and to play outside. Why? Because it makes them tired and they sleep better at night.
Right.
All right. So, the limited screen, and it forces them to get creative on how they're going to entertain themselves. Then, when you go into a musical instrument and the practice, how many parents read to their kids at night? Maybe some don't. Maybe they just turn on a video. But, I mean, everybody knows screen stimulates. It doesn't, wind. So, oftentimes, reading children books. Well, what does that lead into? So then they can, as they start learning their alphabet, then they're able to read, and then it flips, and they're reading to you. Now, is all of this fun? Not necessarily. It's an investment.
Right.
So then that's why, hey, if the kid doesn't like tuna fish, feed them peanut butter. Why fight palate? They got more taste buds than you. It's all developed. If they're like, I don't like the texture of tapioca pudding, okay, give them chocolate pudding or Jell-O or figure out something. Well, they don't like their vegetables, okay. What are vegetables? Vegetables are carbs. Give them bread. Well, then they're gonna let them eat bread. Cheese sandwiches, little fishies for, and Cheerios. Come on. Why fight over food? Well, I want their body to be healthy, and you want their mind to be mush? Mm-hmm. Where does this go? Is it really worth, you're not getting up from this table unless you eat? No. Let them get up from the table. Yeah. Let them eat until they're full. Well, they're back and they want a treat. Oh, well, then that's where you get to be a parent. Say no.
Right.
Let them throw the tantrum then.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to sleep well if they have an empty stomach. No, I totally understand. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's time to introduce peanut butter crackers before bed. And so then they're getting something, they're getting the protein from the peanut butter and they're getting the carbs from the cracker. Well, they didn't eat their carrots. Yeah, I don't like eating carrots as an adult. I do, but you know where I'm going with this.
I like cooked carrots too. So
yeah, oh yeah. But pick your fight, pick your battle. And what I'm telling you is the battle for the arts is worth it.
Right. Yeah, that there's definitely more benefit than there is even a downside, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Because downside, you're looking at the sports. We've talked about some of the downsides already with some of the sports. And there's probably other downsides as well. And guess what? There is some upside to learning a team sport, working together, that whole thing. Working hard for something. There is some positives there as well. But when you're looking at it and saying, all right, we're going to stick kids in sports are we going to do this over here? I started in piano, didn't continue in piano.
Right.
And that was primarily sports got in the way. I was doing soccer a lot. So there were things that got in the way of me continuing piano or even practicing piano, which is really the reason why I'm like, hey, I don't have time to practice, so I don't think I should continue.
Right.
So, but that's the same thing. So what's the priority that you're trying to be able to establish there?
And I would also say any parent can take this topic and talk about an area of life, and you can really be overbearing regardless of what it is.
Sure.
You can be the parent who's like, yeah, I want a starting quarterback. So by the time that my son or daughter, I'm going to use both genders right now in this current day and age.
Sure.
My son or daughter, is a junior in high school, want them to be able to, be the starting quarterback. Well, okay. But is there joy? And I think that that's where you get into the heart-to-hearts. What do you enjoy? Mm-hmm. And children have to figure it out. Eventually, that's the part of parenting that ends up getting fun and being dicey, and there's the challenge to it. Is kind of cool. But again, you could be forcing your child into piano, and if you're thinking they're going to be a concert pianist performing in New York with the Philharmonic, okay.
Yeah.
So I am saying parents can parent their children into misery.
Yeah.
Don't be that parent.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Whether it's sports or the arts, you can do both.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be that parent. in both.
education, employment. You could be the person who puts this drive that they need to be this and they need to make this much, and and all the hey, it's a lot in life. What lot did you pick?
It's
Yeah.
not a lot, but it is a life.
I see what you did there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the arts are, I mean, and that's like when you're also looking at the education system, like the arts are usually the thing that's also on the cutting block.
Yeah.
Like
a lot.
Can we afford a music teacher, to be able to teach music, or can we have a dance teacher who's going to teach dance? I mean, all these are part of the arts.
Yeah.
And it's often like, well, as long as we can get everything else that we, is typical, then those are always going to be secondary. And of course, the secondary is going to be the quickest to go.
Right.
And that's why there's lots of people who are out there who like, we need to save the arts in this, because when you're looking, I mean, and this goes to even, like college academia, right? Is that you're paying some of these college coaches are making millions and millions of dollars a year just to coach.
Yeah.
And not multiple sports. Like,
Right.
especially for college football, you're looking at, that's all they do is coach football.
It's true.
And even though college football is not year round, they're still making millions and millions of dollars just even for that segment. And then you're like, oh, but what about, class and things that are happening on this end? And some of those institutions can have both. But when you're looking at the balance, you're like, look how much is going into these programs that are, as they say, bringing in the money. And I'm like, so why is it that those things are bringing in the money when, yeah, I don't know. So I mean, I think that people, I mean, they get caught up in a lot of these things that that we should also be finding a balance elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's funny. What is the hardest art school to get into? Massachusetts Institution of Technology, MIT.
MIT.
Is the hardest art and design school with the lowest acceptance rate in the world.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even ever considered MIT an art school.
Yeah.
But I guess because of the design, like the design portions of it, is that what the...
Well, they obviously they have a branch of like in their thing is the arts. Yeah, so their acceptance rate off of Wikipedia, 7% acceptance rate. So of all the people who apply, only 7% get in.
Wow.
The average tuition, undergraduate, $54,000 a year. So it's going to cost you $200K.
Right. By 4 years.
Yep. Is paying for MIT worth it? And this article says MIT ranks first on our list of expensive colleges worth every penny. MIT has 21,816 average annual net price according to the college scorecard, and ranked number 6 on our best overall best value ranking. So Forbes put it.
So they're looking at return, right? Return on investment.
Yeah.
Like, so when you are investing $200K into a 4-year program, then you're also, they're saying we also look at the dividends. So you're saying, all right, you get a better job because you're an MIT graduate.
That's exactly the word that they use in this article. They're like, but these colleges prove to be a great value in the long run and will pay dividends. So, I mean, because you're a graduate from there,
Yeah.
not only are you going to make up what you've invested, but it's going to be a dividend return.
Which is
so interesting.
Which is kind of crazy because, I mean, so imagine you're a low income student, and I'm sure there's lots of ways, but the way that they've cut down on student loans now, like they wouldn't let you borrow $54,000 for every year. Like they have like this limitation on it now, so you're not racking up all of this debt. And so I know there's lots of low income programs where you can find grants and all kinds of stuff. But just imagine what a somebody in a low income bracket there. I don't know how many of them are saying, oh, like I'm going to shoot for MIT. They're probably already, as we bringing in last week's topic, saying limited thinking is going to lead me to a place of like, that's not even a possibility for me.
Yeah, what's interesting is before aid, like the sticker price is really $72K. After aid is about $16,000 a year. Cost by household income. So if you are earning as a household less than $30K, then to go to MIT is going to cost you about $5,000 a year. If you are in that 30,000 to 48,000, MIT is actually going to pay you $2,600 a year. If you're in the 48 to 75,000, it's going to cost you about $3,000 a year. And to your point, like right now, household income to this point right here, from 75,000, if you make less than $30K a year, it's costing you more per year than if you make $75,000 a year.
Which is strange.
Yeah, and if you make between 30 and 48,000 and you get accepted into MIT, the disparity is $7,000. Meaning going from paying $5,000 a year to that, because of these grants, federal aid, all the things that come into play, you're actually able to put in your pocket $2,600.
Which is strange. Like, where do you? I mean, how is it that?
Like Pell Grant is the kind of money where like you could actually use it for personal use, whether it's transportation or and some like.
And is that taking into consideration like housing, like room and board? Like
that is what I would I would think.
All right.
So, but at $48,000, $1 to 75, you're paying $2,800. $75,000 to $110,000, your cost goes to $14,000 a year. So you can make if your whole family's making less than $110,000. Now, if you make more than $110,001, you're paying $41,000.
Oh, that's a significant increase.
There's definitely those cutoffs based on what is available to you on the federal state level based on your income is definitely. And they're actually saying first full-time students completed within 6 years is 94%, completed within 8 years, 96%. So if you're thinking that you're going to get through there in 4 years, well, so how much does it cost MIT admissions? The full price of MIT education is $79K. However, most students pay far less than that. We offer full need financial aid, which means we meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for all admitted students for all 4 years of your undergraduate graduate career. So what you're looking at is as people have gone from, they probably have huge endowments. The average price paid by a student who received financial aid was about $20K a year, which, I mean, actually is very similar to state schools.
Right.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
the average salary starting for an MIT senior entering industry in 2001 was $104K a year, making MIT a good return on investment for most students.
And what I can gather, I mean, so I don't think that there's ever been an MIT sports team. that whether or not they even have sports teams at MIT, I don't know. But like when you're thinking about return on investment, going to school, like you hear people shooting for MIT, but like not for, and that's for academics. So I don't think that they're putting their money into a sports program. They're putting it into technology. They're putting it into making sure that by the time that these students get out of here, we want them to have what they need to.
Well, and this is really cool. On further in this article by MIT, they're like, we are one of only 7 American universities that is need blind and full need, which means no student is disadvantaged in the admissions process because of their financial need. We meet the full financial need of all admitted students who apply for aid, which means we award financial aid based entirely upon your family's demonstrated financial need, not any measure of merit. The important thing we hope you understand is that money won't get you into MIT, and money shouldn't keep you out. Our goal is to admit and enroll the best students from around the world, regardless of their financial circumstances, and make sure that they can afford MIT while they're here. If you want to learn more about financial aid, check out. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. So there's 7 colleges in the U.S. that need blind and full need. So as they're applying, this is totally on merit of the student, has nothing to do. And just, can you imagine being in the admissions office or board? You know, like people are making decisions of, okay, here's the stack of the applicants. Now, only 7% who apply get in.
Right.
We can flip that around. 93% of the applicants to MIT are turned down.
Right.
But if you get an acceptance letter, don't worry about getting through college. Either your family can afford it or MIT is going to afford it for you because you're that student. Whoa.
Yeah. So it does look like MIT is NCAA Division III. So they're a little bit further down.
The
right?
bigger the number is, that's not the better.
No.
NCAA.
AA Division I is where
D1.
Right. So D1 is the highest.
Like
so you want to be number 1. You don't want to be higher numbers.
That has to do with population of students, right?
Yeah, I think it's population. But yeah, it could be. Yeah, maybe it must be.
I don't know. We should Google it and figure it out because we're here giving you answers to questions you never thought to ask. And then all the sportos who are listening to this are like, I can imagine Adam is like, come on, guys, of course it's this. And that was my voice, not Adam's. Adam would be much more polite about that. So enjoy that part.
Divisions are based on the size of the institution, the level of competition, and the funding of the athletic program. So Division I schools, for example, tend to give out full scholarships to athletes, while Division III schools are not allowed to award any athletic scholarships. So that would be the difference between levels, like you're saying. We're offering full rides to sports people.
Yeah, but if they're like giving academic scholarships, you find really smart basketball players.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're Division I recruits, but
right.
They're probably really smart.
Yeah. So it is based on size of school, but it's also, and it's interesting, even the level of competition. So if you were a Division 3 school that was trying to hand out academic or athletic scholarships, they're like, this wouldn't stack up. Like, so we need all Division 3 to be non backing, and I would say non-paid, but it's kind of a payment. I mean, you're saying we're going to offer you a full ride, meaning you get to come here for free. You're not going to pay anything.
Well, and I mean, again, not everyone who gets admitted is looking for free education.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, like in MIT admissions on their website, they're just really straight up with, they're like, Dean Stu Schmill says, oh, where did it go? It was right there. I mean, but basically is be yourself and understand here, applying sideways. Look, we admit less than 10% of applicants. So if you set your goal for being admitted to MIT, you're likely to be disappointed. We have a 90% fail rate on application, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a good...
They're very,
it's good to go into that with your head. Like,
very upfront.
Right.
So to the parents that we're speaking to today, just because it's your goal for your child to get into MIT, prepare yourself, because only 1 out of 10 applicants gets in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where the with the college scandals that went on, right? I mean, they had one guy who was in connection, like, so rich people would come to him, say, hey, we want our child to go to this school.
Yeah.
And they're like, what can you do? And he's like, all right, well, we're going to put them into a sporting program, even though they're never going to play. But that's one way, right? So, I mean, they were figuring all these, and all you had to do was figure out a dollar amount for whatever student, right? And they were talking about that the fraud was somewhere between, like $25 million that was, paid by these individuals in order to get their children into institutions that they wanted, but apparently not MIT. Apparently MIT was not a part of college scandals.
Well, that's good news.
I don't know. It was kind of a question. I've never heard of MIT being, I mean, even though it is an elite institution, I've never heard them being a part of it. I mean, I've heard of pretty much, I mean, like what is that, like Yale and Princeton, Brown, what are they in?
Ivy League.
Ivy League.
Yeah.
The Ivies, they have been included in this.
Yeah.
Because people like to have that, that name recognition. Apparently they were, but I mean, it's so crazy the amount of money that some of these, both Ivies and some of these colleges have, like in endowments and in funding. I remember in St. Louis, there's a Washington University, which is weird because Washington in St. Louis, you're like, what, but yeah. It was close, but they were buying up property like left and right, like expanding. And they're just like, yeah, I mean, we have all of this money. Ultimately, we don't really even know what to do with it. So we're buying up property, continuing to be able to find this as an investment. And it's like, you have so much money that you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, let's go buy land and property. Like, I don't know. So to me, it's always the question of like, why? Like, why do you have so much money when there are obviously schools throughout the nation that are hurting on their finances because they're trying to be able to offer, things maybe to a lower income people.
Yeah.
And they're like, can there be a balance of sorts?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, man. Boy, we just butted heads right up into a topic that is full of great adventure and adversity.
Yeah, I was listening to, so Malcolm Gladwell, he's got a podcast.
Yeah.
And he was talking, and I think it was last season on his podcast about some of the college admission, and not the scandal. He wasn't talking about the scandal, but he was talking about the kind of inequality amongst schools. And that there would be some of these schools that were underfunded, and they would have these problems, but the students loved to be there. They would always get high rankings from students about the life either on campus or at the college, but yet completely underfunded, having a hard time trying to figure out how to continue to survive in that place. And then some people like Yale. I mean, if you look at Yale's money that they get from both former students, alumni, or whatever, or just fundraising. I mean, they've got a ton of money. Stanford, Yale, ton of money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I even remember back in the mid '80s, that at the college that I went to, and I'll let that college remain nameless. Just for the sake of, I think that they would appreciate not being directly connected to our podcast. But they had started, and the first goal for one of their endowments was $1 million, and it was just this chat up of, if you don't create a goal where people can give money to, you're never going to receive money towards that goal. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this is kind of, we talked about COBOL math in season 7, episode 1.
Yes.
So I picked this up along the way, actually from some, highly paid, speaker at some event.
Yeah.
But, everybody's got two pockets. But, you can put your hand in your pocket and pull out $1, but in their mind, they have favorite places they like to spend their money. Mm-hmm. So then it went into a heart core value conversation mm-hmm. of, hey, you can tell me what you value with your words, but I can tell you what you value if you open up your calendar and you open up your checkbook. Where you spend time and where you spend your money is what you value. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that's indicting. But when we have conversations about self-awareness, right, and how do you become self-aware to thread the language about ego and basically blind spots where you would be lying to yourself, mm-hmm. Is just take a reflective glance at, take a 3-month journey through, and a lot of people don't have checkbooks any longer, but
right,
print off your bank statements, or I personally would be an analog analysis of this. Print off your bank statements and go through and find out. You may say you have a budget,
right,
but your real budget is where you're spending your money. Mm-hmm. and then, take a look at that and, okay, well, you need to eat. Most people need a house to live in. Not everybody does, but most people do.
Right.
There's those expenses to that, but where is your money going? What causes are you supporting, or what areas are you taking? And if you're like, gosh, I get to the end of the month and there is no money. Well, it's not about what you make. It is not about what you make. It's
Right.
about what you spend.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that is where, as a trusted advisor, I would come in with a voice and be able to say, really, this is not what you want to hear, but this is what you need to hear. In that, if you get to the end of your month and you're rubbing two dimes together, that's an old saying.
It's an old adage.
An adage. You're like, but you don't understand all the expenses that I got. Well, no, I probably do.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an indicting conversation of judgment to say, oh, you're a fool because of how you spend your money. That's not that at all.
Right.
It is an exercise of self-awareness. And so we can go back to our conversation, and here's transparency in the illustration. I personally didn't watch a lot of cable TV, but we had cable TV. Well, if we're looking to tighten up our budget, what do? We got rid of the information or the service of all of those channels that we never watched, and all the gobbledygook of all the music channels that I never listened to one song on those music channels.
Mm-hmm.
But I come back around and I do the research, and like having a Hulu subscription ad-free is like the same amount of money as what it was going to cost to be able to have all the channels. Well, I mean, so, I pick out a couple apps and pay $5.99 a month, and, so there was legitimate savings.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, then consumption becomes a question. Buying a cup of coffee made by a retail coffee spot every day for the whole month is going to cost you a lot of money.
Right.
But I can drink 2 cups of coffee at home out of a $3 12-ounce Cafe Bustelo, and it's costing me cents instead of dollars.
Right.
PBR me ASAP.
Right.
A 6-pack of PBR does not cost the same amount as a 4-pack, or even I don't. Do tall boys with PBR come in 4s or 6s? I think they're a 6-pack.
I think there are
6-pack of PBRs.
Yeah.
You can't buy bottles of wine for, $68 or $110 a bottle and get the same distance out of your dollar.
Right.
So if
sure.
you're wanting a lovely, well-rounded Malbec,
Mm-hmm.
Katina at Costco is $15.99. If you enjoy wine with your meal, and this is to people who are, in the challenged market. They're like, gosh, I wish I could, and then there's seasons of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just heard somebody talking about, the difference between like a low middle class and an upper class, and not talking about any of the systems in place, whatever. But he was saying, he's like, middle class is usually buying vehicles that are depreciating, on a pretty rapid pace. Right. And he's like, but upper class, their goal is to be able to gain assets that are going to eventually pay them. right? They want to be able to focus not on the end of like, I just need to buy this because I need this, but they're focusing on things saying, I want to turn this into an asset instead of something that's depreciating.
Huh.
And so and that's a mental mind shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so most of the time, I mean, middle class, whatever, you're looking at, hey, what we need groceries for the, you know, so things that we're going to consume, and then we're like, okay, I'm out of money now because I have got the goods necessary in order to feed, live, whatever. But it's not necessarily people like I don't have enough money to be able to buy things in order that are going to bring assets in, or that are things that are going to pay me eventually. Like I don't.
And a big thing that comes into play is like some people may say, well, I don't have time to prepare a meal. Every time I prepare a meal, I'm planning 3 meals out of 1 meal.
Smart.
I mean, so it's going to be dinner. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed it'll at least bring in 1 more lunch. And likely with the protein, I'm making enough to be able to spin off the protein that I made
for another meal
into another meal dish that'll be totally different. For instance, I go to Aldi's, I spend $8 on plank of salmon. Mm-hmm. I'll bake the salmon, which actually may be happening this evening. I'll bake the salmon, and we'll have cuts of the salmon as the main dish meal. One of the heads out of the 3-pack of romaine that I spent less than $3 for gets cut up into a salad, and it's Caesar with salmon and probably a side of broccoli. Mm-hmm. That broccoli was less than $2 at Aldi. Okay, I got less than $11 into this meal. Mm-hmm. And I'm planning 3 meals. So then Amy takes broccoli and salmon to work for lunch. Mm-hmm. All right. 2 people ate for dinner, and 2 people are going to eat for blackened salmon tacos on the next meal.
Yeah.
All right. $11 divided by 5. That's just over $2 per plate.
It's pretty good.
For grown-ass adults consuming calories and carbs.
Right.
All right. Now, people would say, but I don't have time. So then they're gonna go, and I do this to Amy on purpose in conversation when we share a meal together. I'm like, hey, how'd this hit the spot? Oh, and I mean, we're really upfront. She's like, yeah, this didn't do anything. I didn't like the seasoning, or hey, or she'd be like, oh man, knocked it out of the park. This works, because then I can file those recipes back, mm-hmm. right? And I'm like, well, sure as hell beats what it would have cost at a restaurant.
Right.
A nice salmon dinner mm-hmm. at a restaurant, we're probably dropping $60.
Yeah, at least.
That's without drinks.
Right.
And so $4 versus $60.
Yeah.
It's not about it. And if the meal is really about sustenance and it's about being with the person you're with having the meal, mm-hmm. why doesn't that make sense? Well, I don't have time. Mm-hmm. All right. So you're driving through McDonald's. You're driving through Arby's. You're going to Tasty Taco. And she and I talk about it. I mean, people are like, man, you eat a lot of shrimp. I can eat a lot of shrimp because I'm making it at home. I'm not ordering shrimp cocktail or ceviche or, whatever. But, I mean, I had shrimp and egg rolls yesterday because I had 2 meals while I was in the studio. But do you know that if I would have went and had tacos down the street, I would have dropped $15 to $17 for tacos. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it is about these choices of how are you going to spend, and not how much are you making. And there are people who are in situations where you think of food deserts.
Mhm.
I mean, they can't even afford to drive to be able to get to a grocery store to get a deal.
Right.
I mean, and so that's a point of poverty that I would say shame on the U.S. And people are like, wow, that's indicting. And I'm like, oh, no, I actually talked to a developer who bought 7 or 10 properties towards the south side of Chicago, was working with other people to be able to bring in grocery store and like turn this thing from itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the alder person got involved, and he got 5 out of the 7 properties sold, and the next 2 they took him back into the regulations of what he had to bring it up to. And as soon as all of that happened, then all of the people who are going to do infrastructure development in that area,
Yeah.
boom, out the door. This is when government gets in the way of what's best for humanity.
Right.
And so, all right. That was a lovely rant.
Yeah. Yeah, I had shrimp last night, so that's funny. I mean, I did grilled shrimp with jasmine rice. I grilled some pineapple, and some orange pepper, yellow pepper. I don't remember which one it was. One of those shades, orange or yellow pepper. Grilled it up, tossed it in a bed of jasmine rice, and
Nice. Yeah.
yeah. And then I just add the sweet chili sauce around it, and
So good.
yeah, sweet chili.
Yeah.
Sweet chilies.
This chicken egg rolls that I found at Aldi
Yeah.
in the frozen section. And then a couple tabs of butter. I put it on the frying pan in the studio. Medium heat. I read the directions. I didn't have any of the ways to cook it that the directions said on the back. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, it's got to thaw out. It's got to get cooked, and I don't want these egg rolls soggy. So I'm gonna let them like just kind of baste in this butter until they're crispy. Oh my gosh, sweet chili sauce.
Yeah.
It's making my mouth.
Right.
Hey folks, can you tell that we're literally, it's 12:45. Yeah, who's doing our podcast through lunch? These guys.
I know.
And
We can tell.
why are we talking about food? Because it's 1:45. Oh man,
It's true.
yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I just think, there's entertainment. I remember when I was younger, entertainment really mattered. And I'm a fan, this is probably the seasons thing. If I get entertained out in public, that can happen with me walking down the street.
It's true.
I do mean more like going to concerts or, seeing the ballet or, just, some kind of entertainment. Movies was a big thing, and now we've talked about there's a major shift in culture in regards to media content taking in and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you got an entertainment section, you've got all the things all the way around of what it takes to be able to do life. But I think a major message that I would like to say is you are not stuck where you're at.
Yeah.
But if
Or you don't have to be stuck where you're. Yeah.
and that's exactly where I was going. But if where you're at, you feel stuck, it will take work and courage to get unstuck. It's just the bottom line.
Yeah, I was listening. Somebody else was talking about, because I've been going through the 12-hour walk stuff, and that dude has, as I mentioned last week, I mean, all kinds of stories that I'm like, wow, that's a select group of people who can do that kind of stuff, walking across to Antarctica or something. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a bucket list.
Right.
I mean, some people may think that like that trips their trigger.
Right. But there was this other story that had come up apart from that, because those are the stories I think people are like, wow, that's inspiring. You don't give up, you do this thing. And then like I hear something today and they're like, so when should you be stopping something, quitting something, and instead of pursuing? So I mean, how many people have climbed Everest
And died.
and died
Yeah.
because they're like, if I give up now, like I'm gonna always kick myself for not doing this, and then they pursue it and they die.
Right.
So like, when do you know when to be able to say, I've got to change course? I've got to stop this or do that. I mean, because those don't oftentimes get the kind of the pizzazz stories. They don't get the headlines like, hey, everybody, I quit this. For example, so they were talking about a poker player, and they said the difference between an amateur poker player and a professional poker player is a professional poker player folds 75% of the time.
I can believe it.
So they know when to be able to say, yep, not this hand, let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean, go on, because then they'll know when their cards are hit, like they know what to do with it then. With an amateur, they're saying, hey, let's just keep going all in and see how many people I can dupe into getting their money.
Yeah.
Like, that can be your goal, but that's not the goal of professional poker players. So there are people who have learned to understand, as Kenny Rogers says, know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
I'm singing that song in my head right now.
Right. So
Train bound for nowhere,
right.
Met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that just came to mind when I'm, considering some of this, is because we always talk, I mean, and a lot of this persistence, and like, I need to just, have enough grit and persistence, and you keep going, and you're like, but is there a time that we should start to be able to consider, like, I shouldn't move forward with this?
Well, and that's where I think that in a lot of number one, if you're still this far into the podcast listening, what you're going to hear me speak about is I'm going to rehearse the values that we've landed on in this podcast. And I would put the top thing that comes to my mind is that's why you need to be involved in healthy community.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully for people, that community begins with relationship within your home.
Yeah.
And yet, there may be some people listening who would say, I don't have that. And I would say to you, you need to have healthy community with someone.
Right.
And I would push you towards a person of similar sex or gender. Don't go running to somebody of the opposite sex to say, oh, this is opposite gender. This is where I'm going to have healthy community. Like if you're in an adverse situation in your own home.
Right.
If you have a life partner, spouse, that's not a healthy way to run.
No.
But community. Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone, maybe a work dad, a work mom? That would be in a situation where gender wouldn't matter,
right?
Where age, the age gap and discrepancy allows for wisdom to speak into.
Yeah.
If you have an unsafe home environment. And the value of that in those you got to get outside your head,
mm-hmm.
And then I think that there, quite frankly, another thing is don't be opposed to professional counseling.
Right.
because a professional has seen a lot of people grappling with these similar topics and may have seen some people make good decisions and may have seen people see people make bad decisions.
Right.
But not only are they trained professionally, but they're trained professionally to be able to listen, to draw, and to ask the questions that you need to have asked. And then, another value is we value life adventure. And knowing just because you're at a time when it's time to stop or not pursue the direction of your pursuit, that doesn't mean that life is going to be without adventure.
Right.
And it's the change that becomes the adventure in the regards to what's going on.
And I also don't think you need to look at it like, oh, that was a failure then. And maybe there was some parts of failure that were present, but, again, it's the same thing. What Edison said, I've figured out 50,000 ways, to not create a light bulb before I created a light bulb, whatever. I mean, there was the idea that some of those things can be a teacher, can be a guide. We can learn through that, but we don't always have to say, oh, this was a failure, and so therefore let's forget it. Like, no, remember it.
So adaption.
Right.
Being able to learn to adapt. These are the things I learned on Ink Master. So anyway, but I mean, to your point, right. I had a 3-shelf system built on the backside of a standing desk. And when I'm like, man, this thing, I just keep bumping into it. And I'm like, yesterday I was like, oh, design failure. I just need to set this thing back another 5 inches. And there'll be a little corner out there, but this will be more like a bookshelf than a shelf sticking out and jutting out into the room. Right. Poor planning, poor design. Yeah, sure. It served its purpose for the time being. Why can't there be an allowance for shift, a shift into, and I don't know, that Alone series is another one that is basically you're sending people out there, and by the time they figure out what's going on, then the fish aren't biting, and then they're sitting in their little cave dwellings until they are starving to death. Yeah. It's like, who's going to stop them from harming themselves? Well, the medical teams are. But they have those outsiders coming in because left to themselves, wanting $500,000. They're making poor decisions for their own physical health.
For sure.
One girl, it took her 6 months to recover from her starvation.
Wow.
For her to start feeling normal again. And she didn't even win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, poor thing.
Takes a toll.
Yeah. And that's not the only topic. Life takes a toll.
Yeah.
And I think being able to come to the table and say, you know what? Life's taking a toll.
Right. And that's where it goes back to and around to, healthy community.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine going through those moments?
No.
With nobody?
No, I can't.
Right. I mean, and Alone says you're supposed to do it alone, right? But that's a game show.
Well, it's a game show, but it's really cool of what humanity comes back with of reason and reflection. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a season of that where the people who are out there don't say, you know what? I was not made to be alone. The equation of this life live out is alone and loneliness. That is not a part of our what we've been created for. Yeah. And so I completely agree. And yeah, that is a game show. And the flip side, and if you're so stuck and paralyzed that finding healthy community is something that you can't even do, then I would say talk to the counselor. I would move you into what just the other day had somebody on my mind. And like 3 times into my head, like, hey, you should check on this person. Mm-hmm. And I called them, and I'm like, hey, I just wanted to let you know you were so on my mind I couldn't not call you.
Yeah.
That's the voice you're listening for.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to, you're like, man, I feel alone, I feel stuck, and I need to bump into something else. Then pay attention
Right.
to the people you need to reach to, and reach out. Paralyzation at this point will not lead to health.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm even trying to be able to think or consider what's the title of this episode today. We've talked about a lot of things today.
Well, I think we got to chalk this up to play ball, parenting skills, and survival.
Yeah.
Permission to survive, permission to adapt, permission to. You got to have a skill set to be able to shake and move.
Shake and move. Shake and bake, baby.
Oh yeah, baby.
Bake.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know, somewhere in there
We'll find a resting spot.
Episode 72.
7-2.
Yep. Season 7, episode 2. Well, hopefully you can find, and I think what a person who's stuck might need to hear is, we believe that you can.
Oh yeah.
We believe that you can get unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
We will be here to say the things that you don't want to hear, but we also believe that what is within you will give you courage to make the changes you need to change.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes what you need is that reset where you're like, all right, what's going to take to reset this? Because, stuck, when you're stuck, like, you feel like there's nothing you can do. Like, but just like video games growing up, like sometimes you just had to hit reset in order for the game to come back to a place where you could play it again.
Or blow on the cartridge.
Right. Which was usually you had to turn it off, blow on the cartridge, stick it back in, then you can reboot it. But,
well, in a personal life story though too, my family, we've just gone through a job change.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of pain coming up to, and I don't mean physical or emotional. I just mean it took a lot of conversation. Mm-hmm. And work to trust in, hey, is this job change going to work? Mm-hmm. Is this for us? Is this the thing that we should be doing? With the job change, now a schedule change has occurred. We have a curfew now.
A curfew for check-in?
So
it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the goal is between 9:30 and 10 o'clock that we're heading up to bed and TVs are off and get a good night's rest. Well, you know what? It makes getting up in the morning a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And the things that we're working toward as a family unit, that's a major change. It's post-pandemic change for us. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on around that. I mean, shoot, I've been out for walks 2 out of 3 last nights. Now, that doesn't make Steve a happy guy, but it's probably good for Steve. And I just put that out there to say, this isn't me talking in a microphone, pointing fingers and saying, hey, if you're stuck, you need to change. I mean, we live out this conversation of what we're having.
Right.
And so in that, hey, listen to the voice within you and reach out to the people that voice is telling you to. And if you're not stuck, but you're in a season that's difficult, make sure that you take time to encourage others, and you'll be surprised how you'll be encouraged yourself.
That's some good advice.
Right there.
Because then you're not focusing on yourself because when you're focusing on yourself, you're focusing on the problems. You're focusing on all the ways that it's not.
How come people don't encourage me? Right. And that kind of thing. I'm just saying, start taking a step out into do unto others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just take a look at others and see how you can be able to be an encouragement, and you will be blown away at how you're encouraged.
Agreed.
Boomerang math. We're gonna call that the Copel boomerang.
Right. So be encouraged today. No.
You're gonna be happy whether you like it or not.
You just do it.
Encourage. Will Robinson. All right, everybody. Hey, it's been good.
It has been. Hopefully you get something and that you can learn from something and then you can grow into something.
Get it? Got it? Good. Good.
All right. Have a great day, everybody, or night or evening or whenever you're listening to this.
Peace.
Have a great rest of whatever.